Hello, and welcome to a special edition of the Dots, Lines, and Destinations podcast. We're recording today's episode at the APEX Expo in Anaheim, California. And this is one of the bigger annual industry events talking about in-flight interiors, connectivity, entertainment systems. Happens to be co-located with IFSA, which I don't know what that stands for, but I'm guessing the F is food because it is actually not food. I've now just been corrected here. It is the In-Flight Services Association. But the F should stand for food because, seriously, they've got a ton of food and beverage over there, some of which I've already had a bit of this afternoon, so take that for what it's worth. And the goal is to actually get a whole bunch of journalists, industry experts, pundits, friends of mine on the show and start talking about what's going on in the industry. So, first up, got two good friends. I've got Mary Kirby from Runway Girl Network and John Walton from the Runway Girl Network as well. John is doing all sorts of fun things, so you never know exactly where to attribute him. But I'd like to introduce the two of you. How's it going? Welcome to the party.
Oh, thanks for having us. Everything's going very well.
Having an excellent Expo this year.
Yeah, and so some of y'all may remember we did a similar sort of recording back in April with the AIX event in Hamburg. That was another one where I got many of the acronyms wrong many times, so yay on me.
And the name of your own podcast.
I did, in fact, get the name of my own podcast wrong as well during that recording. I was much more drunk that time, so I don't really know that matters. But anyway, first topic up today with John and Mary. I want to talk about aircraft interiors of some sort. ISIS?
No longer. No, we are definitely not calling it ISIS. If you remember, Zodiac had a couple of innovations for the Airbus narrow-body family of aircraft that it was calling ISIS, which stood for Integrated Systems, Interiors, and Stuff. Stuff.
Is that what the last S was?
And possibly SINGS, because it was Zodiac France.
SINGS, yes.
But no, it was obviously, in the current political climate, calling something about aircraft to ISIS was not going to happen. What they've actually done is, this time round, they have worked with Airbus to redo the ISIS back of the plane, the ISIS after complex. And what that does is it lets airlines gain another row of seats by, that's 37 inches of pitch, so that's a lot of space, by taking out the two lavatories that sit at the side of the plane before you get to the back door, and instead putting them at the back of the plane where the galley is. And
what happens to the galley?
Well, here's the interesting thing. In the first version of this, it allowed for a very limited number of galley trays. The second version is mixed with something that they call the Space Lav, which is a smaller yet convertible lavatory. So it's still
convertible into a galley space?
No.
Okay, that would be bad.
No, the convertible is the two lavatories, which are relatively small, convert into one lavatory for people who have reduced mobility.
Right.
So if you have passengers who aren't nimble enough to get themselves into and using the one lab, it is still actually really accessible, which I think is a big plus.
Yes, this is also something that is on offer from other corporations as well.
Yes, there's a similar
I mean, on wide bodies, it's very common that, like, in the back, we usually call it the party lab, but a lab that has that capacity.
Yeah,
sometimes it's actually just a big one. That's the party lab. The convertible one, you can sort of see there's a latch in the middle that can open it up, but you rarely see it in use. But so you're saying Airbus is going to, in the narrow body, put labs in what is the traditional aft galley space, and that's going, and there'll be more than one. Is there still a galley then?
Yeah. So what it is, basically, as you look at the back of the plane, and look, the SpaceFlex lab itself is not the new thing here. It's the fact that they're adding more trolleys to the SpaceFlex lab, right?
You just told me that we weren't going to use the lab as a galley. Now you're telling me we're putting trolleys in it.
Right. That's the thing. It's this lab galley combo. So on the left-hand side of the plane, as you look down to the back of the plane, you have the galley area.
Okay.
On the right-hand side, you have the doors to the lavatories.
Okay.
And what the new one does is it means you can add extra trolleys in because they've fixed the storage slightly.
That's an interesting use of the term fixed in my world, but
okay,
we'll go with it.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, it means that you can get 3 extra half trolleys, which, for a narrow-body carrier who is looking to save some space and sell you some things,
might just be enough.
A lot of panini.
I'm also quite entertained by the fact that you're calling 37 inches of pitch one row. I'm wondering which narrow-body Airbus operator is still offering 37 inches of pitch as a row.
Precisely. Well, JetBlue is.
Fair.
So, you could add an entire extra row of even more space for that.
I could dig that. I fly JetBlue a lot. I like them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, who doesn't?
Yeah.
And so that's the original SpaceFlex is currently flying on TAM, which is the Brazilian side of LATAM, on Pegasus, the Turkish airline, and on Lung Air from China.
Okay.
And of course, part of this announcement was also the Airbus new overhead bin.
Yeah.
This is the pivot bin?
Yes, and this is essential now for lots and lots of different reasons. They have been quietly developing this behind the scenes for quite some time. I ran a story on the premium side of Runway Girl Network last year that Airbus absolutely refused to comment on and even said that it was actually inaccurate. And it turned out that I was 100% correct. That
No details.
we had talked to a number of stakeholders in the industry, including airlines, who had seen the concept that Airbus had tabled to them, and they were quite excited about the prospect of refreshing the A320 cabin. It looks quite stale, particularly in contrast to the Boeing Sky Interior. And of course now, recently, Boeing announced a new space walls, overhead bins, that will actually be even, apparently, a better solution that allows you to even get more bag space. So it was high time for Airbus to bring a new overhead bin to the A320. They're doing that. They announced the ISIS aft complex in addition to this overhead bin. It means a whole new cabin.
If I remember correctly, Delta's the launch partner for the new bins?
Delta is the launch partner, and of course they're a very big fan of the new bins. They ordered the Zodiac ISIS retrofit for many of their aircraft. In fact, you and I wrote about that for the network a while ago. Remember when Delta announced that they're bringing all these new Pinnacle seats to 225
I did write a story about that, didn't I?
At that time, they announced that they were going to bring ISIS. Well, actually, they wouldn't confirm that it was ISIS. They called it something else, but it was ISIS. So Zodiac is getting a lot of content now on these aircraft, and for good reason, John.
Yeah, exactly. So, as you said, these are starting in Q1 2016 with delivery of the first of Delta's 45 A321s.
Okay.
So, this is actually something that's really not that far away.
Yeah.
One thing to note for the obvious many cabin interiors geeks on your listenership set is that the Zodiac involvement is only for the lavatory.
Yeah.
Okay.
Airbus is going on its own on these new overhead storage.
They're doing it all themselves.
They are indeed.
You know what's interesting? When they say they're doing something themselves, and Boeing is in the kind of a similar boat, they take ownership a lot of times of these overhead bins, and they say that it's their product, but they're quietly farming it out. So I would not be surprised. Now, it's not to say for sure that they are, but I wouldn't be surprised if quietly there's a deal with Zodiac for the overhead bin as well. And
we're doing it ourselves by way of we're putting our name on it, but someone else is actually doing most of the heavy lifting.
For example, when Boeing announced the space walls for the 737 recently, I reached out to IAM 751, the union that represents the folks that do all the fittings, and I
we
said,
actually aren't hiring anybody new to do this work?
I said, hey, I understand that you guys are building this, apparently, and they're like, well, that would be news to us. And I'm like, okay, this is another example. And Boeing did it with the Boeing Sky Interior. You know, their partners on Boeing Sky Interior include BE Aerospace and these major names, but you really wouldn't know it because everyone is hush-hush. Everyone has to be very quiet about it. So this is how they roll. That's fine, but we're starting to understand that. No, but when you're covering the industry, you know, this is an example of why there's not a whole lot of transparency in aircraft interiors. There's a lot of deals done behind the scenes, and the aircraft interiors companies don't particularly appreciate, or the airframers appreciate it when you point out who's doing what. But we think it's important. We think it's important because ultimately, as passengers, when it comes to survivability of aircraft, when it comes to getting out of aircraft, when it comes to being comfortable in aircraft. I mean, these are all things that we want to know. And I always highlight this, and it's a perfect example, I believe, is the Asiana crash. I mean, when that happened, we wanted to know who those seats were because there was a lot of them had pulled away from the seat rack, and they had undergone really serious stressors, and it was very difficult to find out. And we believe in transparency in this industry and would like to get transparency in aircraft interiors. And so hopefully others will join us in this endeavor.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think we'll call that a wrap on section 1 of this little podcast.
That's great.
I'm reasonably certain both John and Mary will rejoin us for later bits.
Yeah, absolutely.
Based on the shock on their faces, they're not so convinced, but we'll see how that goes. Just in case you don't make it back on, you want to tell the world where they can find you online?
Yeah, absolutely. We're at runwaygirlnetwork.com. Just very basic, very easy, and at runwaygirl on Twitter.
And I'm tweeting separately as at That's John.
Awesome. Well, thank you both very much, and very interesting stuff. I'm a little confused how we said it from the beginning. We're not going to call it ISIS, and then spent the whole segment calling it ISIS. So, for those of you concerned, we're not actually doing any of this in Iraq or Syria right now.
Lord.
We're actually in Anaheim, California, so we got that going for us. All right, well, we will catch up with you all in a little bit. Thanks a lot.
Great, thank you.
All right, and we are now back with segment 2 of special edition of Dots, Lines, and Destinations here at the APEX Expo 2014 in Anaheim. Up next, we're going to be talking in-flight entertainment systems and new developments. I've got Grant Martin, business travel editor for Skift, and Chelsea Bryan, a freelance journalist who works for Avionics Magazine, Runway Girl Network, and all sorts of other fun stuff. And it's the million-dollar question, or really multi-million-dollar question coming out of this show based on how much these systems cost is there anything cool enough here that you think airlines are going to buy? Was there something fun and neat that caught your attention?
You know, there is one thing that actually captured the interest of my friends on Instagram, which is pretty much the bell ringer when it comes to PAX X. So at Bay Systems, I saw just an interface that they created. They're having it on Android, and it's basically like you sit down in your seat instead of, you know, the traditional seat back system, which sometimes you can't hear the movie over jet roar. for.
Right.
It's content from magazines to games to music loaded on an iPad that you can take down and hold in your own hands. And I think people are going to be pretty excited about that because people just love the personal electronic device, and it's a way to do that safely and have security as well. For instance, the system has an alarm if you take it off the plane. So I think
that's a
one
bummer.
highlight.
I mean, if it's going to be my personal system, I kind of want to take it with me.
Not personal enough to keep for life, unfortunately.
Well. So you think the personal entertainment device sort of this is not bring your own device. This is the airline providing it to you, but we're still doing content on tablets and other portable devices.
Exactly, because there are security problems with hacking, as well as if you're porting over, Swift broadband network, for instance, then you want to separate the cockpit system from the cabin so that you can't hack important information.
Sure,
this is like important in the wake of NH370.
Yeah, that would be bad.
It seems to be a concept, though, that they're trying to sell, but maybe haven't been implementing really well. Like we were over at Dallas earlier, and Panasonic is doing the same thing, where they show off these technologies. They show off these technologies where you can potentially integrate Android devices. You can potentially bring your own devices, but I think that there's a pretty big barrier to adoption for a lot of these airlines. Delta, American, they all want to have ownership over these systems, and to give some of that up to Android, for example, or to Panasonic, or to have it branded as Panasonic, you see a lot of reluctance.
Yeah, I will say I sat in on some of the same demo that Chelsea did with BAE Systems, and I think one of their interesting comments I heard from them is that they expect to have an STC for this IntelliCabin product early next year. I have notes somewhere that he gave me the months that he was thinking. I think it was February, March, or March, April sort of time frame, so end of Q1. And when I asked, did he have a specific aircraft type that they were going for an STC on, the answer was yes. And if I asked if there was a specific reason for that, by which, of course, I mean a customer, the answer was also yes. Smart enough not to tell me which customer or, say more than that, but I think clearly they have an idea of somewhere they think this is going to sell. So
you got the same thing with GoGo, too, right? I mean,
sure.
They've got this new 2KU system coming out, and you say, well,
they're announcing customers, though, with it.
Sure, well, I mean, they've got JL, and they've got Virgin Atlantic now, which they announced yesterday.
And Mexico.
Right, but you ask, what other areas are they going into? And they say, yes.
Yeah, we investigate all sorts of connectivity options, right? I mean, they are that, and to be fair, they are very much a service, middleman service provider, just as much as they are the owner of that ATG network. That ATG network is still the biggest part of their commercial business, and even their BizAv business, but they are clearly diversifying and moving into other spaces.
Yeah, talking about companies who are diversifying, we get that with Rockwell. Since they acquired Outrink, they've really sort of stepped in, have a bigger share in the IFNC space now, and so, that opens up opportunities for, from all the different companies, from Lumexus and Zodiac Aerospace to Thales. Everyone's competing for it, but it also creates opportunities for some of the little guys. Like today I talked with a company called IFPL, and they're basically making the avionics components and the hardware that goes into this, the thing that I keep forgetting that you keep reminding me. NFC, I can't remember it for the life of me, but it means near field communications.
Sure.
That's attaching your card to something, and it's much more secure in the wake of things like, these target hacks of your personal information.
Sure.
So
Home Depot most recently, actually, I think.
Exactly.
I just got an email telling me that a card I've never used, because I got just for the miles, may have been compromised at a Home Depot recently, so...
Exactly. So it creates initiatives and business opportunities all down the line, from the avionics components guys to the OEMs and the airlines.
Nice.
So we did get a lot of future-looking technologies as well, or pitches, if you will. You walk into the Panasonic booth and they show off all these technologies that they're developing. They have this cool room that you go into. They've had this cool room since 2003.
Yeah, they've had it a while.
And
has any of this stuff ever actually come out of the cool room?
Well, that's interesting, right? Because they give you all these great examples and these use cases, and you're like, great. So who's going to be the launch partner for this? And they're like, yes, right?
Yeah.
And I think that between them and Dallas as well. I mean, Dallas, for example, showed off this technology that allows you to use your eyes for eye tracking to control your in-flight entertainment.
Yeah, back in Hamburg, I actually sat in that seat and did the demo.
Right. So it seems like they're pitching these great, cool concepts, but adoption really is the big challenge here.
Did you actually try the eye control thing?
I didn't try it there, no.
Okay. It's really hard.
Did you?
I did it back in April in Hamburg. It was surprisingly hard to remember to stare at something long enough to, do the select function.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I was talking to them earlier, and one of the big problems with that technology is it uses an infrared camera to bounce off the back of your eye. So it tracks where, the black in the back of your eye is moving compared to your head, right? But if you're a person that looks with your head instead of your eyeballs, which most of us do, then the system gets confused. So that's one of the big challenges, getting that integrated.
I think my problem is I just don't focus long enough on anything. I was, all over the place.
Well, the human eye moves very rapidly, so maybe it's technology thing.
And
could just be me.
It's a pretty,
pretty bad problem to have, right? When you can't reach your screen so far that you have to use your eyes.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
a good
it's a
point.
rough life.
Too bad for you.
The entirety of the first world problems hashtag summed up in one scenario. Like, gosh, that touchscreen is just so far away and huge over there that I have to watch the TV from my fully reclined
This is making me
seat.
think of the Internet of Things and the interesting stuff we heard from Cisco on that.
Yeah.
You know, from the airport that they have in Copenhagen, where they're monitoring absolutely everything you do. Because guess what? All cell phones have a GPS in them. Therefore, they're tracking you.
Yeah, that was kind of scary, actually. But not like scary, like
You
I'm
know,
afraid of it, but like
I know
kind
what
of
you mean.
intrusive and
And I
like
was talking-
batshit crazy.
Yeah, I was talking with El Al, and I asked El Al if they are interested in this sort of thing. They said, "Oh, we're already doing it." I said, "Well, aren't Israelis scared to have their privacy invaded upon?" And he said, "No. Well, you know, we kind of consider it. Anyone can hack you anyway. So unless you're a hacker yourself, you're not going to be able to cover the tracks. So just don't do anything bad and enjoy the benefits."
It's terrible logic.
But not surprisingly, what the Israelis would say. It's actually also interesting. One of the ways they track you is with extra wireless access points, they put beacons, so they call it beacon tracking. And so they basically, even if your phone doesn't connect, if the Wi-Fi is on, it'll sort of be out there. And Apple, I think, just announced that with the, is it iOS 8 or the iPhone 6? Is it iOS 8?
Right.
Grant is nodding. I know that doesn't come across very well on a podcast. Grant is nodding. So iOS 8 will actually spoof the MAC address. So you won't actually have the same MAC address as you hop from access point to access point. So it'll be interesting to see how well some of this tracking stuff works with that sort of system implemented.
It's just another technology that I think is really cool in concept, and that it makes for a good show at APEX. But to actually see it in practice and to get it integrated into airports, seatbacks, and then into customers and their smartphones is a pretty big barrier.
And convincing customers they should do it.
Right.
I will throw one other bit out there from this Copenhagen example, just because it was really funny when watching the video. One of the things the guys were saying is sort of their use case and why it was important is that sometimes equipment gets misplaced. I lost my mop bucket, is what I'm thinking. And okay, you're going to put a Wi-Fi transmitter on it. They're talking about like belt loaders and cargo trucks and things like that. Like the part where Copenhagen Airport apparently has a problem of losing snowplows.
Well,
kind of has me worried.
Things are specialized already. This isn't really a necessary service because there's a company out there called Aviontech which already does this. So.
Okay. Yeah, I know they're like just modules that stick on that's got a Wi-Fi transponder on it. But it was the part where they're talking about like, yeah, sometimes we lose these things, and then the camera pans across like the baggage carts and belt loaders and stuff. I'm like, are you really losing baggage carts? Like that seems. I mean, I guess it happens. There's enough of these things. Like one gets dropped off in a corner somewhere and no one knows what happens. But it seems like a lot.
So this could this potentially be the theme for this year's conference, wherein we have like these cool concepts and a couple of neat little gadgets and gizmos. But I mean, have we seen any amazing
big
passenger integrations?
Yeah.
I mean, were you amazed by anything?
No.
Well, I was a little bit amazed by the idea that I could put my phone near something and it would pay for it, but I think Britain is already pretty familiar with that idea, so that's just because I'm American.
There you have it. Us stupid Americans. Gotta get out more and travel, Chelsea.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you both for joining us. You want to tell listeners where they can find you online, websites, Twitters, Facebooks, Instagrams, whatever works for you. Grant?
Hey, I work for Skip, so that is at Skip on Twitter, and I tweet myself at Grant Kmart.
And Chelsea?
And I am at Black and Blue Part 2, Twitter handle.
Awesome. Part 2.
Part 2, yeah, it's actually a reference to a Me Without You song from when I was 18, so it will probably change soon, but for now.
For now. Well, hopefully anyone who finds you there will follow along after it changes.
Yeah, so we get some laughs from that one.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining. Look forward to seeing you around more, and catch you later up at the show.
Thank you, Seth.
Thanks, Seth.
And we're back with segment 3 on this special edition of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. I'm joined by Marianne Simpson, Runway Girl Network contributor and captain of the SS Enterprise.
Right.
And Tomas Romero, also one of the Runway Girls and contributor. And for this segment, we're going to be talking about onboard comfort, amenity kits, pillows, blankets, all that sort of good stuff. So
all of that stuff that you don't get in economy.
Some airlines are starting to do long-haul economy mini amenity kits. I mean, Singapore Airlines has done it for a long time.
Yeah,
you get like an
Amex
eye mask
gives
and
pretty good stuff,
earplugs.
BA gives you some socks and an eye thing as well. Like
Yeah.
So, yeah, but I think, there's some interesting things going on in that market, both at the very high end and, of course, at the low end. So, or not low end, but, economy. I spent some time earlier this afternoon during our, sponsorship hunt, by which I mean searching for booze for this event, talking with some of the folks who make blankets for the different airlines.
John Horsefall?
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah. They're awesome. They're
Some
so soft.
spectacular content
They
there.
have samples, though. I wanted some.
I know.
Yeah.
They actually had a pillow cover that was for was Concorde patterns, which I have a picture of. I'll try to put in the show notes.
Oh, that sounds awesome, yeah.
And they built it for British Airways to use on their A318 service between City Airport and JFK, sort of remembering the Concorde, because they made it BA Flight 1 and 2 again. And it was a throwback nod to that, and they ended up apparently just not doing it. But these guys had that sample, so they were out on display. I kind of wanted to see if that might disappear into a pocket somewhere, if that could get away with that. But, I mean, so that stuff is nice. They had all the fancy blankets and stuff, but I don't feel like there's been that much innovation in that part of the market. I mean, have you seen anything new growing in there? Are there other things where you're seeing bigger changes?
Well, I mean, a trend for the last few years, I would say, and one of the bigger trends is being able to repurpose some of these things that you're given by the airline. So, I mean, amenity kits have almost always made nice little makeup cases and stuff like that. They, you know, these days,
a place to carry your amenities, in fact?
A place to carry your amenities, or, you know, your pencils if you're an artist, or whatever. You use it however you want. But more specifically, as travelers have more electronic devices, airlines are looking for ways to create attractive amenity kits that can then be turned into, you know, iPad cases or stands or cell phone covers and things like that. So that's one thing that has kind of shaken things up, but I wouldn't call it extremely new.
Yeah, but I mean, that seems like something from a couple of years ago, and almost that we aren't seeing quite as much of anymore. Is that played out, or is it just people are trying to decide what the next iPhone is that they're going to have to cover? I mean,
well, people can only have so many iPad cases. I think, you know,
I can only carry so many makeup packs.
Yeah, I mean, it got a lot of attention, but I think now what the main thing that a lot of people are focusing on is the design aspect. Bespoke.
Okay.
You know, a couple years ago, North American Airlines didn't have any money. Everybody knows this, and they just wanted the cheapest thing that they could get in bulk and get on there as quickly as possible. Whereas now these airlines are starting to make money again, and they're starting to spend money again on the passenger experience to compete with the, you know, Emirates and the Singapores of the world. So they are looking for something really unique and reflective of their brand and their ideals, and they don't want anything similar to their competitors whatsoever. So the amenity suppliers are not just sourcing from China or Vietnam to try and find the best prices, but they are actually working as somebody to connect them with brands and designers and ideas that are totally unique.
Right. Yeah. Another cool trend I've noticed is there's a lot of kids amenity kits which have been coming out for, you know, harried parents, and as one, I understand the need for it. It's fun. There's been, you know, it used to be just crayons and stuff, but now it's a lot more inventive, which is cool.
Yeah.
Ways to keep your kids occupied in flight, which I think is...
Yeah, I know. I've done a couple Lufthansa flights and gotten the little backpacks
their stuff is awesome.
and stuff like that. They have some really cool... I've
it's really
wanted
cute.
it as an adult.
Exactly.
I've actually asked for them, and they look at me very strange, which I just assume is part of it. And if they have extras, I managed to score one. So,
that's cool, yeah.
And my nephews like them when I'm done.
Yeah,
but, they usually get most of the bits still inside when that happens.
Cool.
Marianne, you were talking a lot about sort of not necessarily or the amenity kits becoming sort of more of a brand thing as opposed to just the products inside. I know you've done some work with Wesco, which is one of the big, I don't even know what to call them. We had a big announcement this week that they've rebranded themselves, which is, or
they don't
rebuilt
like
their
to,
market.
they don't like to be called it, but they are an amenity kit supplier.
Okay.
But they're trying to move away from the term supplier and try and position themselves more as a design firm and somebody that is able to connect airlines with interesting lifestyle brands. And this is kind of a new thing. Like, we've had people working with skincare brands and cosmetic brands. You know, all the little things inside the kit come from a name brand, like, I don't know, Elizabeth Arden or Clarins or something like that. But now Wesco is actually working with companies like Eames, design houses, with Gibson guitars, and they're looking at ways to offer passengers different kinds of amenities, like music downloads or things that, you know, by working with Gibson, you can download new music from an upcoming artist, and that's something that's different. The millennial passenger, they don't want to smell like their grandma. They don't want these like brands that have been around for ages, these legacy brands. They consider themselves different and unique and interesting. So there's a lot more space now for emerging brands to come in, and there's always going to be a place for the luxury.
I could easily say, I don't want to smell like my grandma, so I'm going to use Bliss instead of I don't know what else, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure, well, my grandparents have passed on now, but I'm pretty sure the number of grandparents using Bliss products is a relatively smaller number. So
you're not wearing Old Spice. That's
I'm not wearing Old Spice.
No.
I'm a little worried now. Get another drink over here. So I mean, it's interesting to me. You know, what you're saying is, it's these amenity kits. It's not just about having a toothbrush and toothpaste and mouthwash to use on the plane. It's now much more about having other stuff. It's a souvenir from the flight as opposed to what the amenity kit originally was, which is something to keep you fresh during the flight.
It's almost like it represents a lifestyle. I mean, sure, it's got its utilities, but it needs to be sort of reflective of the new generation of passenger.
And I think
everybody's trying to catch that now.
A great example of that is actually JetBlue's Mint product. They went with the Birchbox solution, so everything that you get on board there's some of it can be used in flight if you did moisturizer or something like that, but there's a lot of it is for after you land.
Mm-hmm.
And there's male and female versions, which I've taken both just to see what's inside, but and they're targeted arguably towards those gender demographics. So I think that's one example of someone who's actually doing this now. Any insight on where else we might see it soon, or anyone else doing it?
I think you're going to see a lot of people in the comfort product space, even working with like automotive brands. Like I said, design houses, fashion designers has been going on for a while, but I think you're going to see more artists, automotive brands, maybe sporting lifestyle brands like surf and skateboard, and it could go anywhere.
Great.
I was going to say, a lot of that goes back to the whole emotional connection, too.
It is.
You take it home and you have something to remember your flight, but it's also just this kind of bonding thing with the airlines, but I think it's important, too. There was, what was her name? She spoke at the Comfort and Ambiance breakout session on Monday. Stephanie Perrone Goldstein from LRA Worldwide, and she was talking about how emotionally connected consumers tend to spend more money than those who aren't, and if they have an emotional connection to a company and a brand, they'll come back to it again and again. I think that's important. That's a lot of.
And it turns out that they're seeing that translate off the airplane, even based on an amenity kit event on board. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting that they're turning this not just into something that gets you through the flight, but really something that builds that sort of connection.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of time when the passenger's on board that the airline is not actually connecting with them. Like they're sitting in the seat, they're watching the entertainment, but the flight attendant only comes by a handful of times. But that kid is with them the whole time. So there's so many things that you can say to them during the flight, after the flight, when your personnel are not there to say it themselves, and that kid is speaking for you.
Awesome. And I think we're definitely seeing some interesting developments in that space. I think it's always been that the kit speaks to you. I mean, I still have old kits from various airlines I use all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely impressed with what some of the old ones ever said, but I think, the idea now of what they're saying, that they're talking to you and actually trying to build that relationship is a really interesting and different approach to how this all works.
One more thing that I did see a news article about a blanket that it senses your neurons or something like this during the flight and lets the airline know how relaxed you are at different points in the flight and checks the body temperature.
The blanket turns colors or something, right?
It's a smart blanket.
Yeah, it scares
like
the shit
a
out of
mood
me.
blanket.
Yeah. What else are they learning about you?
Yeah, exactly.
He's really, really, really happy while he's sleeping right now. What is that dream?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Well, thank you both very, very much for joining.
Thank you.
Had a good time. Real quick, you want to tell everybody where they can find you online?
Yeah, well, most of my stuff's on Runway Girl Network, but I have my website is Tomas and Romero at WordPress.com.
Twitter,
too. At TN Romero at Twitter. On Twitter.
All right.
Okay. I've got a bunch of stuff on Runway Girl Network. You can also find some of my writing in Aircraft Interiors International and the APEX Experience magazine. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, Marianne Simpson, and my Twitter handle is at JetwayMJ.
And thank you both very much. I was about to do the closing for the show, and we've still got more segments to do. It's built into my brain there.
Keep going.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to get the next crowd right in here. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're back with segment 4 of this special edition of APEX Expo's Lines to Destination. John Walton has rejoined us again, as well as Chantal Berenson. Berenson. It is a German name, and my German accent is about as awful as my English.
Deutsch sprechen?
Nein.
Actually, a Danish name.
Is that Danish? Well, then I'm done. I'd also like to note that this segment, we're going to be talking about food and drink. As I mentioned earlier, the IFSA conference has all sorts of fun bits, and one of the many sponsors, by which I mean people who we managed to snag a bit of extra booze from, is Nuvino Wines. I tweeted about them yesterday, actually, on my Wandering Iron Man account, talking about their wine in a bag. And it's basically like a smoothie pouch, baby food sort of foil pouch thing with a screw cap on it. And at Nuvino Wine is their handle on Twitter, and I say that only because we're drinking their booze, and I figure they deserve a little bit of credit for letting us do that. So, cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Clink. By the way, those are plastic cups. You didn't actually hear the clinking. I could find a sound effect later, but whatever.
Okay, let's go bing bong.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the serious wino thing about it, right? The really interesting thing about it is that it's
Chantal's making faces
it is
that don't look good.
It is a drinkable Sauvignon Blanc that is going to be very passenger pleasing, right? Look, your premium passenger is not going to be served wine out of a little plastic bag.
Probably not. They would use a bigger plastic bag for that.
Yes.
Okay.
But look, if you're down the back of the plane and you want a glass of Blanc, like you would get in your local liquor store or local supermarket, this is a perfectly adequate option. It's pretty green and eco, right? Because it folds down to nothing. The preservation quality is really good because it's non-transparent foil.
Right.
And some of the wine is pretty good. The Malbec is great. We're drinking the Sauvignon Blanc from Chile's Mole Valley.
I enjoyed the Sauvignon Blanc. I actually like their random generic red blend from Australia.
They have an Aussie red blend there as well.
I didn't really love the Malbec that much, but
I quite like the Malbec.
I know. You and I had this discussion yesterday. I think you're an idiot.
Yeah. Well, the feeling is mutual. But
I know.
look, I think the Malbec will be a lot better at altitude because Malbec is grown on at altitude in Argentina.
Sure.
So a lot of the sharp tannins that Malbec can have down here at ground level in delightful Anaheim will turn into some really interesting and complex, wanky flavour and mouthfeel and things.
I gotta be honest, I'm kind of hoping that the Sauvignon Blanc will do better at altitude. Sorry.
And now John is helping Paul get over that disappointment.
Thank you very much. Now I won't be accosted by that.
By
that dreadful wine.
So, other than the bag of wine, which, and I mentioned yesterday, I actually hope that we start seeing a bit more of this on board. I actually think they're good flavors, and for all the reasons you mentioned, it being, it's a lighter thing to carry, it keeps better, all those bits.
It can fit more in the trolleys.
It does fit more in the trolleys, which surprised me because the bags look taller and bigger, but...
And also, because it's a metal foil, they will chill faster, so you will not get warm white wine on plate.
Bonus.
I think part of it for me is the fact that it's coming out of a bag, so it's like a mental, going back to undergrad where you're
Box of wine,
exactly. I think if they hit it from me, I might be slightly more amenable.
But do remember, people said the same thing about Screw Cap,
right?
For years,
yeah.
And it turns out that, and John, we were talking about this earlier today at the Champagne booth.
Yeah.
Was that Intervine?
Yeah, that was Intervine.
Another sponsor of ours who gave us plenty to drink today. Intervine is one of the big importers and suppliers to the airlines. Right. We actually got some giveaways from them.
They were giving out these really interesting little bottle caps, really, and it's a sort of rubberized your open bottle of wine, and it's like putting a cork back in, but actually a lot safer and more secure, and you can store it sideways in the fridge. And
which, hypothetically speaking, in a mini fridge at the Red Lion Inn, for example,
right. Another one of our sponsors.
I haven't. I actually managed to was actually graciously given a number of those when I mentioned we were doing a podcast. So leave a comment on the notes or tweet at us or something, and I'll find a couple people to mail some of these cool bottle caps to.
Yeah.
But I think, one of the things we talked about with those folks at Intervine was that the Screw Cap was basically, oh my god, Screw Cap wine. Who would ever drink that? Until the Australians and New Zealanders started making good wines that way.
Exactly.
And it actually became accepted because it was served on the planes that way in premium cabins. And people were like, well, I get it in first class on Qantas. It must be okay.
Exactly.
Okay, that's a pretty good argument. But
we're not going to serve this in first class, so I don't know that it works.
Exactly. You're not going to get wine in a bag in Qantas first. You're going to get Penfolds Break.
I have to say, I don't think that's a comparable argument. Screw cap versus cork, it's you still have the curves of the wine bottle, the weight of the glass.
So you're into the curves, is what you're saying.
I am into the curves of a wine bottle. I like a good curvy wine bottle.
Whereas I'll just take an old bag.
Yeah, with a bag, it's just...
John, you just set that one up like that. What am I supposed to do over here? The problem is I actually can't do anything. I'm stuck with too many ideas in my brain of where to go with that. I'm paralyzed. Damn you.
Here I am trying to discuss wine in bags.
Yeah. I think that's basically the entirety of this idiocy.
There is, obviously, part of the wine experience is the whole thing about the sound and the smell and the ambiance.
Right.
But look, you're not going to be having a gourmet unophile experience at 7,000 feet cabin pressure at 38,000 feet on your Ryanair flight to Treviso.
Right, but that's fair, but you also don't have to feel like you're on death row. Like, getting your last supper. Like,
that's a very nice problem to have. This wine is not up to
This wine is not up to my death row standards. I gotta go hang out with you a little more, Chantal. I'm liking the way you drink. I think we're gonna have some serious party fun tonight.
Me too.
Yeah, right? Yeah. That's how the runway girl
network brings it, yeah.
We bring it and then we lay it down.
Anyways.
But no, I specific questions about whether or not we independently would drink this as a gourmet wine. I think there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be pleased to have a cheaper plot, so they can have a good couple of glasses of on their flight back from wherever it is to wherever it is.
Right? When was the last time you had a glass of wine and coach on a plane? A split.
Okay, this is where I admit that I don't actually drink when I'm in coach on a plane. So
that's fair. That's a reasonable thing not to do. Right?
Yeah, I just try to block it all out.
I usually get there by drinking.
Yeah. Well, look, I feel over here on...
If I may, what I was going to say is, it's not, it's not the oenophile experience. You're not going to call this a luxury wine, but compared to all of the other things I've had in Coach, I've had in the past 10 months, a number of mini plastic bottles of both red and white. the stuff I tasted here was better.
That is true. So maybe
not even from a death row perspective. I'm talking about from a coach class perspective, which arguably is worse. But we don't need to go there.
Okay, so then if we're
it was
talking
Economy
about
Plus, it wasn't worse.
right? So it's getting better, but are we just going to be like, okay, it's better, so this is okay, or are we going to say it's better, but it can be even better than what they've come up with recently?
What do you mean, like I flew British Airways World Traveller Plus over here, which gets the economy class wine trophy, right?
Right.
And that is your little split of not particularly good red or not particularly good white. And as I said, this stuff is actually better than the stuff that was being pulled there. And I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed this. I think it's good wine. Completely passable. Yeah, this is your standard if you're at the liquor store, like $8 bottle, $8 to $10 bottle kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No one's going to call it complex and spectacular. Exactly. I mean, they've won awards. They said I don't know what the contests were, but
for your many European readers, this is the 3 for $10 deal on the wine. It's that sort of.
Yeah, I think it's for what it's supposed to be. It's great, or completely passable, anyways. So, putting aside Bag O' Wine, which is, I think, arguably one of the newest developments that we saw over there.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you saw on the food side of things that was interesting and exciting?
Staying on the wine topic, I just heard that from Marianne Simpson that they're doing the 1.5 liter bottles in PET bottles. Yeah. So as a space saving type
Interesting.
thing. Yeah.
You said in PET bottles. This is in plastic.
PET bottles, yeah.
So plastic.
Yeah.
Right. So it could, PET bottle versus
glass. It's also going to be way lighter.
Yeah, that's a New Zealand thing. I was enjoying a Yalen's Sauvignon Blanc in New Zealand. There was a PET bottle exactly the same size as a glass bottle, but it held a litre of wine
Also a litre
rather than
instead of 750 because it's so much thinner in glass.
Yeah, it's great. Now, the question is whether or not flight attendants will enjoy lifting up a litre and a half of wine rather than a litre of wine. But
it does it way more or less, right? Plastic versus glass. The glass is a solid chunk of that weight. Yeah. So, I mean...
Yeah. Flight attendants will be thrilled about that. And, but no, I think that's great. That's fantastic.
I mean, I'd be okay with it if my wine came out of a huge PET bottle, just not out of a bag.
Yeah.
There you go.
Fair enough.
I have a funny feeling John's going to talk about chicken and waffles right now.
I'm not going to talk about chicken and waffles. I'm going completely up the other end of the scale. Yeah?
Really? You're not going to talk about the chicken and waffles?
I am talking about the hazelnut oil poached scallops.
Oh, that was really good too.
The hazelnut oil poached scallops. Essentially, this is a scallop that has almost been sous vide'd in a slow-cooked hazelnut oil bath.
Oh my god.
And this is from Diarcherai, which is...
How did you pronounce that?
Diarcherai. Whatever.
From North Germany.
Yeah. They were very proud of that, actually.
Klein Mickelson represent. Yeah.
If I remember, there's a picture in this. I just brought out the brochure that they gave us. This guy, they're smoking fish in like the same farmhouse from 1850 something, right?
I mean, this thing looks like it fell out of the Hanseatic League.
No,
it's very British.
It's like a legit North German solid farmhouse. You know, you go up there, you see these things all over the place.
It's tall and pointy. I mean, if you're not entirely familiar with North German farmhouses, think like a New England barn sort of shaped roof. And it's a very pretty red brick, almost a sort of red brick / Tudor side. It's lovely. And they've got some really good ideas in this, right? And a lot of their ideas about cooking seafood slow so that you get the proteins at a really enjoyable texture.
You get the good flavor and texture without destroying the nutritional value of the protein.
Right, exactly. And then also, with the fish, it's about smoking it in a really delicious and umami-laden what's something they're smoking it in? Is that like a rub?
Oh yeah, they had some. There was one they did that was like, there was a tuna in a Black Forest rub that tasted like Black Forest. I mean, the texture was like a Black Forest ham, but it was tuna. We did one of the salmons had like
cream cheese and wasabi in the middle.
There was so this was the crazy thing to me is the wasabi was already in the middle, and they smoked it with that already inside.
Wait, so it's smoked with it inside? I just saw it. I didn't get a chance to try it.
You should have talked to them. They would have given you a little more.
No, I actually had the smoked salmon that's smoked with a Nordic rub on it.
You had the Delish one,
right? Which is actually projected to be a huge culinary trend thanks to all the travel and Frozen. Yeah. So thanks Disney.
Yeah. Right, I'm okay. Wait, if what Disney means is, and for everybody loving Frozen, is that I get better salmon on a plane, I may even pay for a ticket to watch it. I won't actually watch it, but I'll pay them that $8 or whatever it is so that I get better salmon on a plane.
This is exactly the opposite of a first class problem, isn't it?
It is.
No, I mean, and this is the really interesting thing, is that these foods are made to make the most of how our taste buds work at altitude. They're made the most of,
and that's why the light smoking of it, right? All those little things. Otherwise, the smoking becomes too overpowering.
I mean, I remember eating salmon on a plane, and it's so fishy and smoky and completely overpowering. And again, that's because of the research that people have been doing over the last few years. British Airways and Heston Blumenthal have been doing all kinds of interesting things about how umami is the flavour of the 5 flavours that you really get at altitude.
One that matters at altitude.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. You know, it's just some really fascinating, really useful stuff. Now they've got their products on a lot of airlines that you might not think about.
Yeah, these guys, I mean, to be fair, they said they had 15 airlines, 5 or so that they sell direct, and 10 others that I think the gentleman said, we sell to LSG Sky Chefs, and it just sort of happens. We don't really know where it goes.
Yeah.
Right.
But they're airlines that I fly. Yeah. They obviously, being German, Lufthansa is a big client of theirs, but they have their stuff on United. They have their stuff on other airlines, and I will admit, I saw one of my United folks here and was like, it doesn't really taste that way on your planes, and he gave me a wink and a nod and a elbow on the shoulder, and probably wanted to give me a bit more than that, but it's not perfect, and obviously on the ground it's different, but some of it, in retrospect, looks very similar to some of the product that I've seen in the sky on United, so it makes sense now to see where it's coming from.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of it is they do a lot around sort of jumbo shrimp. Yeah. Right. And so there was a delicious jumbo shrimp in a sort of curry marinade, and there was one that was this beautiful sort of lemon and herb and parsley and garlic.
There was the lemongrass one also. That was the first one I think I tasted.
I gotta say, I really like this trend of foods becoming more complex in the air. I remember a couple of years ago, I had an elderflower soup on Lufthansa, and it was bizarre. It was like tasting the scent of flowers. I mean, about as close to an LSD trip that I'll ever get to.
Was it an LSG trip?
Oh, boy. Wow.
I love how proud you are.
I would be equally proud, if not more, if I managed to pull that one off. I'm just disappointed I didn't.
Yeah.
But like since then, this trend of foods being more complex and thinking more about how the palate is at altitude, even if it might not taste great on the ground. I mean, I'm a huge fan of that. I love walking through the aisles and seeing all these things that they're coming up with that are not what you would have seen a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I think part of that is we've always acknowledged that food has less flavor at altitude, right? Everybody knows this.
Right.
Taste buds get desensitized, cabin pressure, yada, yada, yada. The solution to that used to be salt and MSG.
Yeah.
They were cheap, and it worked. Yeah. Except for the part where you had massive headaches and a heart attack when you landed. But other than that, it worked.
Yeah.
These days, I think the part of it is chefs they're partnering with better chefs or coming up with better recipes. And part of it is that they recognize that customers are tired of over-salted, over-MSG, whatever. I mean, I did a tasting with a Delta chef the other day that they're calling it farm to tray table. Yeah. And the idea is having local produce, local everything. And they've got, it's locally cured meats and all this. Like, salted cured meats, always going to taste just great at altitude. This guy's biggest problem was he couldn't find enough baby pigs to get the ham hocks made. He was having trouble getting enough product over a period of time because you go to one of these boutique farmers and do it, and they run out. Right. They can supply 3 days worth of flights, and then they're done for the year. Mm-hmm. And so getting them to scale up and still keep their sort of boutique-ish product. These guys, they're Raucherei. Sorry, the CH is always going to have a ch for me because, there's that. These guys have managed to come up with a way to do it, and they're a small smokehouse, but they've just hit their target of they can produce enough quantity for a sustainable level with these vendors.
And I think it helps that this is likely to be the appetizer or your amuse-gueule sort of thing. So, one salmon will feed 2 or 3 planes rather than,
a salmon entree, which would feed 2 or 3 people.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. I gotta be honest, as much as I love the smoked salmon, if they tried to give me a huge lump of it as an entree, probably would not be a fan by the end of it.
No, but like 3 or 4 slices, a thin cut for breakfast would beat the shit out of the Jeff McMuffin. Right. I would love that way more than an omelet.
Yep.
Forget the part where the whole plane would stink of salmon when we're done. And the guys going back that night would be like,
what is this?
What is that smell?
Exactly. But there's also this amazing little these little cubes of fish.
Did you like the fish candy?
The fish candy.
I was expecting, what I was expecting that to be is like a marzipan that looked like fish but was actually candy?
Yeah, and it was exactly
not.
The opposite.
It was in fact just a little piece of fish.
Right.
They called it fish candies, but they were like
it was in a cube.
2-centimeter cubes.
Yeah.
That sounds really cute, though.
And hid under a little glass bowl.
Cute.
It was adorable. And I just don't know what the flavors were supposed to be.
Again, I think
was
this is
with
exactly the sort of amuse-gueule thing that they're going for, right?
Right.
And that's a lot lot of that is the thing that people are like, oh, this is really cute. And that's, both people, both older folks who are, in theory classier and have more disposable income to...
give you half of that.
Right, but also, those of us in the Instagram generation who are like, oh my god, I'm totally snapping a picture of that while I'm sitting here on the ground.
Which filter will be best for this little cube of fish?
Right.
I'm pretty sure low-fi.
I'm pretty sure I need 3 or 4 different to try.
Yeah.
I actually like Mayfair for food. It makes the colors look a little bit more.
It makes it pop.
Right.
Well, and that is a development in the industry. We've now discussed our favorite Instagram filters.
No, but, I think one of the other things in food is there's a development around the cabin crew doing more on the plane.
Yep.
It's not just a doggy dish dinner anymore. And that goes, throughout the cabin, right? I mean, there's a lot of business class food that's being plated on the plane rather than you're just presented with your dish of stuff. But also, Qantas, the flight attendants on Qantas will sort of poach the snow peas. Or the
Do they use their random hot water from the coffee pot?
Exactly. They just pour the hot/boiling water on it, just to give a little.
Right.
It's not poaching with vegetables, it's blanching. So you have an actual crisp green vegetable on a plane.
Wow.
Isn't that? And on top of that, this is a famous Neil Perry Australian chef thing, and it's a curried fish on top of beautiful snow peas and some nice rice. That you've taken out from not the outsides of the rice thing, so it actually tastes of rice and not crunch.
Nice.
It's fantastic. There's a lot of really good stuff.
And that's the sort of thing. I mean, if you do like a sous vide or a plastic bag that warms in water as opposed to in the foil pan, the rice isn't crunchy, and you do a pull strip on the top, and it dumps out onto the plate just fine. Arguably even better because you can control it. Yeah,
we've returned to the food in the bag,
and we've returned to the food in the bag. So we're gonna have rice in a bag and wine in a bag.
Wine in the bag.
I'll take the rice in a bag.
Yeah,
thank you.
I will have your wine. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Chantal, you want to tell everybody where they can find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, I am at CC Berenson on Twitter, which I don't know if any of you... Should I spell that?
I'll put it in the show notes. We'll make sure we can find you there. And John is still that John.
Still that John.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us. A bit awkward for those listening because it won't actually make any sense to you, but the bar just got here. So there's going to be a short break while we go get a bit more to drink before the next episode, when the next segment gets recorded, even though it's going to sound like there was nothing at all. And we're back now with segment, I believe, number 5. The bar is open, as mentioned at the end of the last episode. So cheers. Let me do that.
Cheers, everybody. Ching, ching.
Yeah, I had to actually get a glass out. I'm drinking both out of plastic and glass right now because each of my hands need... One of them is a proper plastic cup. Anyways,
you're not drinking out of a bag again?
I'm not... We talked about that in the last segment. I'm just saying, I think drinking out of the bag was completely reasonable. I've got Jason Rabinowitz, whose voice you just heard, and Mary Kirby back on once again. And for our last segment here, we are going to be talking, connectivity?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. Connectivity developments in the space that's come up this week. Obviously, there's a couple bits of big news. One is GoGo signed a couple new airline partners and announced those. We announced Virgin Atlantic today. We announced someone yesterday.
Vietnam
Airlines yesterday.
An agreement in principle to eventually bid on something.
No, the bid is complete. We're just finalizing the details. It's arguably similar to what the Virgin Atlantic one is, where it's an agreement, but we're still finalizing the details on the pricing and everything. So that is what it is. And then Panasonic came up with a new antenna for their KU band connectivity. It is similar to the 2KU concept that GoGo announced in April. There are, in fact, a number of differences to it. It's a little thinner. It's a lot lighter. It's not quite as robust.
It's also electronically steered. The GoGo's 2KU system uses 2 rotating, mechanically controlled antennas, while the new Panasonic system uses electronically steered systems, which are lighter, thinner. It's better for drag, but it may not be as efficient. I guess we just have to wait and see on that one.
Which is interesting because someone pointed out on Roma Girl Network in the comments section, they believe that calling something mechanically steered face-to-face is an oxymoron.
You can't have both. You can't have both. It's got to be one or the other. Is that what we're going? Which, it's like jumbo shrimp. What are you going to do? Which is also a reference to the last segment where we spent entirely too much time talking about the shrimp from those guys.
Those shrimp were good.
The shrimp in the food booth were spectacular. I think, and I need to write a story about this. I don't want to put too much in here because odds are I won't have written the story before I release this podcast. Right. But I think I talked to the guys at Panasonic, I talked to the guys at GoGo, and the statement "size matters" isn't them just being drama queens. It's really true. And one is bigger, one is smaller. And there are significant performance ramifications of that decision. It's not just that the smaller and lighter one is going to be better because it's smaller and lighter. It is going to be better from a fuel burn and drag penalty and all those other things, but there are some negative connotations and ramifications that come with that as well, where GoGo's bigger 2KU, the antennas, the physical devices are bigger, the radome is bigger and it's heavier, and that's arguably bad, but they think there are going to be some benefits for performance because of that. And so it's going to be an interesting discussion to see where good and bad comes out. And now I've just finished giving the entire explanation of the story I said I wasn't actually going to share. So.
Well, most trends in technology are smaller is better, but when it comes to antennas, the bigger the antenna, the better the antenna typically. So the more surface area there is on the antenna, the better the signal will be. So it'll be interesting to really see if the Panasonic antenna will be able to live up to the name, if they'll be able to compete with the 2KU antenna from GoGo.
Well, and they are similar, but they're not actually targeting the same markets.
No.
And I think that's ultimately what the conclusion is here, is that they're really they're looking to be in different markets. They're looking for different airlines and different types of missions, aircraft missions, route types, things like that. They really aren't supposed to be the same solution. So I think
Panasonic's looking at narrow bodies, number one.
Panasonic's looking at narrow bodies. I think 2KU is probably too heavy for most narrow bodies.
I don't know. I mean, Virgin America has been studying it pretty closely, and that's A320s, so...
A319s, yeah.
It's...
but they also are super happy with ATG4, so maybe not, right? I mean...
Right. Time will tell.
Right, they were the GTO launch partner then, that's sort of...
Yeah, that kind of fell off the face of the air.
I won't say completely tabled, but we're not entirely sure what's going on with that now.
Some of the interesting things...
Would you like me to hold that for you, Mary?
Some of the interesting things that I learned today on the show floor, because obviously a lot of the buzz has been about these big antenna reveal. It follows a big reveal, obviously, by GoGo at the Aircraft Interiors Expo. So it's kind of interesting that some of the big moments of both shows have been about antennas, which we've been covering a lot on the network about for many years.
So
in general.
Do you think that there's I don't want to say a problem, but we get this sort of situation where it's, here's our big news, something awesome is going to happen in 2 years. Is that a thing? Is that a problem? Is it just the way the industry is?
It's the nature of the beast. It really is. But I think something that's really important about the Panasonic announcement is that while, phased array technology has been around for many, many years, there are in fact 3 phased array antennas on Air Force One right now. That's the former Connection by Boeing product. And originally Boeing wanted to go phased array, but the cost was very prohibitive, and also they were not, 100% on certain other issues to do with, and you're going to be writing about this for the network, but in terms of when you get to certain areas in the world where it doesn't work as well as
route profiles where there are troubles.
And so some of these things continue to be an issue. This is not the original Boeing antenna. That needs to be stressed. They are essentially improving upon a design.
They're building it in-house, right?
Yeah, they're building it.
The manufacturing. And let's also be very clear, this is a technology that doesn't actually exist yet. This is improving on a technology, taking existing sort of government systems and making it commercial, cutting costs, etc., with a target introduction date. But unlike 2KU, where they said we're going to straight OEM, not even OEM, we're going to buy ThinCom antennas and put them under our radome and build the other electronics and modems and such. This is actually a new antenna being built. This is not some... It's not fair to say it doesn't exist, but it doesn't entirely exist.
You got to make it before you can install it.
Right, and so there are some potential limitations there.
Yeah, it's interesting days, but of course, it's exciting to see such progress on the antenna space right now.
Yeah. I'd also like just to give a shout out to myself from camera work perspective. I've got both the Panasonic and GoGo logos in this shot right here, because we can't be showing favoritism one way or the other.
And there's like a little halo around my head.
It's the cloud
there's
actually.
No favoritism.
There's the cloud.
It's all objective journalism.
That's the cloud over the GoGo logo, actually. Okay, you take the camera back
Thank
now
you.
because I worked really hard to get both of those in there.
That's great.
I saw you slowly.
Yeah, I slowly, and I can't just move it.
What is he doing?
I had to get Panasonic in there too. So anyway, so we got new antennas.
Virgin.
We got the Virgin deal. We got the Vietnam Airlines deal. Did anything else happen really in the connectivity space? Was this a quiet show? Was this a boring show? Was this big?
No, there was plenty in connectivity. Listen, if you talk to the connectivity guys, I learned, for example, today that, Viasat. Did you talk to Viasat?
I talked to Viasat.
And they're already starting to hint at a Viasat 3.
We're not calling it that yet.
Oh.
It's the next thing.
Okay, it's the next thing.
If any sort of satellite marketing history holds true, it will be Viasat 3 because
Let's get Viasat 2 in the air first.
you can't have such a conservative approach, Jason. If you want to be a player in this game, you got to be doing multiple things at the same time.
You want to be a player.
I'm going to have to fold my satellite company already.
Oh, my word.
I'm
Just not willing to be that risky.
I'm out of the game.
Yeah. They are talking about that. They're being, obviously high throughput, lots of spot beams, massive capacity, sort of. They're not looking at iterative growth. They're looking at big growth.
Yeah.
And that's consistent with their Viasat 1 to Viasat 2 mode. The real question is, where is it going to have coverage? And they did a very good job when I asked that question of naming every region of the world, arguably in an order that may or may not matter.
Yeah.
But they've got partnerships that cover some of the areas
Eutelsat
too.
being one of them, and that's very interesting. Inmarsat, of course, has also got plenty of news, and Honeywell this week. I mean, they're all progressing. Global Express obviously is a bit delayed because of reasons that we've reported in the past. The rocket launchers
Can't actually get satellites in the air if
that's a
the
problem.
launch rockets keep exploding. It turns out.
That's a problem. But as soon as that happens, they're on track with everything else, so they're ready to go.
And the Honeywell folks have done their testing.
Yeah.
They're actually really excited by that. They've got the hardware ready to go, so that is good news. And they definitely had some interesting stories. I think they certified or have agreed on a partnership with the A350. With Honeywell, so that was announced
which is
this week.
great.
That's
and
cool.
also, and it was kind of
That's
interesting.
Honeywell with the Global Express KA global network, assuming we have satellites in the air.
Right. That's all of that. But also, we'd be remiss not to mention the announcement with Bombardier. Bombardier is making Global Express. Express. That's the Corona speaking.
That's right.
Line fit.
We've added a new branding for that, right? This is the Biz Express or whatever.
The Jet.
Jet Express.
This is.
It's the Global Express network, but if you're using it on a BizJet, it's got a new name.
Yeah. Well, and they package it differently and all of that jazz because it's BizAv, and they have to meet very stringent quality of service metrics and all of that.
And it's actually a different antenna.
Yeah.
Depending on if
Tail-mounted.
it's the tail-mounted antenna.
Tail-mounted on the globals, and it's great. It's a great announcement for them. It's the first line fit offerability, with an airframer for GX that's been signed, sealed, ready to go in the BizAv community.
For those of you buying BizJets, check it out.
You got a great option.
Also, for those of you listening buying BizJets, we need to talk.
Yeah.
Your sponsorship would be much appreciated.
We'd like to get the NBAA.
If you haven't learned anything from this episode, sponsorship usually just means a couple bottles of booze.
What I'm happiest about is that we're finally seeing all the satellite companies shifting away from slow, awful, expensive L-band, moving to KA or KU technologies. We'll finally have bandwidth in the sky, and it won't be expensive and terrible.
Well, and so then the question is, does that not expensive and terrible, at least the not expensive part, translate down to the customer?
I would hope so.
You hope so.
Have you ever tried using on-air L-band before?
Sure.
Yeah. It's
I've used
not
on
exactly
Emirates,
a
I've used it on
desirable
Thai,
experience.
Both were horrid, actually. Actually, they weren't necessarily so horrid as I was scared to use them because I didn't know how much it was going to cost me to do it.
Do you want to use your 30 megabytes during the first 8 hours of the flight or the second 8 hours of the flight?
8 hours. How do you make 30 megabytes in the last 8 hours?
You don't. That's the trick.
I'm just saying. I thought maybe there's a trick here that...
No. Well, you can always give them your credit card and get another 8 megabytes or another 8 megabytes.
Yeah.
Not ideal. But that is finally looking to be a thing of the past, and I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, I do think it's important to acknowledge that, and this is one of the things, this industry moves slow. I sort of alluded to it with the satellite announcement, or the radome announcements earlier, and then it's something else that will happen in 2 years.
Right.
If nothing else, I've at least been covering this for 2 years now, so the things that were announced 2 years ago are finally coming to fruition.
We'll eventually see them. In another 2 years, we'll have something else to look forward to in 2 to 3 years.
And that's the way the world works. It's interesting. Aviation's a slow market.
You can't have everything you want now, otherwise it just would be nothing to look forward to. That's not fun.
I would take that trade-off.
To each their own.
Anyway, well, as Jason and I rambled here, Mary moved on because it turns out the show is still going on and she's got business to do.
It's still going on, really?
There's still people out there actually trying to do business. I don't know what's up with that.
Wow.
But Mary is still at Runway Girl on Twitter and runwaygirlnetwork.com out there. Jason, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
I am at Airline Flyer on Twitter.
I like the way you looked into your beer bottle to get an answer to that.
Well, no, I was making sure there's no beer left that I can drink.
Yeah, to get an answer to that question.
Well, of course. I am Airline Flyer on Twitter, and that's about it these days. So
awesome. And I'm Seth Miller. If you hadn't figured that out, I did forget to introduce myself at the beginning of the episode. But
who are you?
I'm Seth Miller. We just did that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the Wandering Airman. So there's that. This has been Dots, Lines, and Destinations, a special episode recorded live at APEX Expo 2014.
In Anaheim, California. Blisteringly hot Anaheim, California.
That's right. I would be remiss if I did not thank GoGo for hosting us. You saw a couple pictures of the booths they shared. We've got some giveaways. I've got some GoGo gift bags of various shapes, sizes, and such. If you had fun today, if you enjoyed listening to this, or if you hate us and just want a GoGo giveaway, send a tweet at DotsLines and tell us how and why, or post a comment on our blog, moredotsmorelines.com. Either of those could win you a prize, so I have no idea how many I actually have, or, any of those things, but there will be giveaways. So leave a comment or send a tweet. You'll hear from me, and I think that's it.
Well, let's go get some more beer.
Yes, it's definitely time to drink more.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.